How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm David Clark, and this is my old sled. To buy or not to buy? In today's video, we're talking about Ontario Trail Permits. So every year since I got the sled, I've been buying the Ontario Trail Permit. This year it was a real struggle for me, and I really had to think about whether I was going to buy one or not. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So this video is primarily going to be of interest to a rider in Ontario. But wherever you ride, there's probably some kind of trail system in place, and a lot of the information is probably similar. So I'm going to tell you everything you want to know about an Ontario Trail Permit. Where do you get one? How much does it cost? What do you get out of it? Is it worth buying? We're going to do all that in 2 seconds, so stick around. So before I get started, just a quick shout out to Teresa Weller. I'd done a video last year about removing old trail permits, and Teresa asked, can you not just put the new permit over top of the old one? Teresa, as far as I know, yes, you can. I just take the old ones off because I think it looks neater, and I'm kind of particular about my snowmobile. So so as far as I know, you can put the new one over top of the old one. Okay, now I'm just going to head inside for the rest of the video. It's starting to snow again, and I'm starting to get cold. So thanks for the question, Teresa. It actually started me thinking about permits in general, and it gave me the idea for this video. All right, guys, so as I said, most of the content in this video is really aimed at a rider in Ontario. I'm going to be talking about the Ontario Trail Permit. But you know what? Post something in the comment below. Tell me about where you ride, what the permit system is, how much they cost, whether or not you order a permit. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so an Ontario Trail Permit allows you to ride on any trail that's administered by the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs. Now, that's an important distinction. It's an Ontario Trail Permit, not an OFSC Trail Permit. So it's administered by the Ministry of Transportation. It's regulated under provincial legislation. They're only available online. Now, not long ago, you used to be able to get them at a local location. I remember there was a store not far from me where I could buy them, but they've centralized all the purchasing for permits, so now you can only get them online. So obviously you're going to need insurance to ride your sled off the property, but in order to order a permit, the only two things you're going to need are a VIN number and a vehicle license number. Okay, so in terms of price, there's a couple of different types of permits, and there's a couple of key dates that are important. So for starters, a regular seasonal permit price is $270. But if you buy it on or before November 1st, that price is $190. So you get quite a discount if you buy early. Obviously, a lot of us are sitting around waiting to see what kind of weather we're going to get. So to encourage you to buy a little bit earlier, they do give you quite a substantial discount. So I drive a 1997 MXZ. That's counted as a classic sled, and you get a bit of a discount if you drive a classic sled. So my permit is $180, and if I buy it on or before November 1st, it's $150. So again, nice discount. Now, if you're only going to ride a couple of times in the winter, maybe you've got a cottage you go to maybe once a year, or you're coming from outside the province, you can get a daily permit. Now, they're actually called multi-day permits because you have to buy a minimum of 2 days, but those are $35 a day. So it actually ends up being more expensive than buying a permit, but if you're only doing it once, it's a little bit cheaper for you. So that's what the permit is and how much it costs. Is it worth getting one? And, it really depends on the type of riding that you do. I forget people watch the channel from all over, and I don't really know where you ride, but, if you're somewhere where you have access to hundreds of miles of backcountry that you can legally ride, then you're probably not that interested in buying a permit. To me, trail riding is a completely different type of snowmobiling, right? The trails are literally like a highway for snowmobilers. So you can stop for lunch along the way, you can hook up with some friends and go from town to town. There's like 30,000 kilometers of trails in Ontario, so it's a great way to see a lot of Ontario. So it's a great type of riding. It does appeal to me. So on that account, yes, it is worth buying, right? So if you look at in terms of cost, is it worth it? I would say yes. If you look at what they spend the money on, all of it goes back into the trails in one way or another. So you think of all the expenses the OFSC has, right? Think of how much a groomer costs. Think about how much maintaining that equipment costs. Storing that equipment, think about signage and insurance. And the OFSC itself, they have expenses like marketing and operational costs. So all of those expenses benefit us in the long run. They go into promoting the sport. So yeah, I think basically the price of the permit is fair. All right, so that's cost. Now what about value? And so value is what are we getting out of it? And a big chunk of that is trail availability. So trail availability basically comes down to weather. And that was one of the things that made me pause a little bit this year. So, the last 2 years weren't great weather-wise. I didn't get to ride that much. But then again, the 2 years before that, it snowed constantly. I think it started snowing in early November and snowed right through to March. I didn't pay any extra for all the extra grooming, so I think it kind of comes out in the wash. The one thing I do know is that our local clubs and volunteers work really hard to get those trails ready so that when we do have the weather, I do a lot of riding. So if you're talking about value and you're thinking about trail availability, then remember that permit is a provincial permit, right? So you buy one permit, you can ride anywhere in Ontario. So where that comes into play, I remember last year, for example, a lot of my local trails weren't open because of the weather. But if I looked on the map, a lot of them just south of me were open. So it was a little bit frustrating. But if you have a trailer, you've got friends with a trailer, you're still up and riding. This is kind of weird. We're sitting talking about value, and this is a little bit of added value that just came in the mail. So I have a printed copy of the trail guide, and I got a couple of magazines. So you can opt in for one or both of these when you order your permit. We've got Super Tracks magazine, and we've got Go Snowmobiling Ontario. There's also member discounts as well, so you should check out the website for that. So that's a little bit of extra value add as well when you order a permit. All right, so if you're okay with the cost and you think the value is there, then it really just comes down to affordability, right? And I basically just mean, can I afford this, right? Some people live paycheck to paycheck. November, December, you're getting ready for Christmas. In my case, I got laid off recently, so I really had to think about whether this was something I wanted to spend the money on this year. All right, guys, so what was it? Did I or did I not buy a 2018 Ontario Trail Permit? Yes, absolutely I did. So what was it that made my mind up? Well, it's kind of the way I look at the permit in the first place. I don't really look at it as a license to ride on the trails. If I think of, the OFSC, the local clubs, if I think of all the volunteers out in the fall clearing brush, repairing bridges, think about the guys out in the groomers all night to give us the nice trails to ride on. Ultimately, I look at the permit fee as my investment back into the sport. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you found that video useful. If you think I deserve it, take a second and give me a thumbs up. Until next time, I'm David Clark. Thanks for taking the time to watch.
Yeah.